Welcome back to Psychic Street Smarts. I'm Catherine MacDonald, and we're talking to Irma Haggett about labyrinths and about how to use them as tools for balancing, for focusing right and left brain connection. Her website is www.amazeyourmindlabyrinths.com. And we were talking on the break as we went to get some water and sort of reset the heat in here. We were talking about what the labyrinths actually do, and I get a lot of questions from people, and they go, well, does all this funky new age stuff actually work and whatever? And you know, they're not sure. It sounds good, it's got a nice buzz to it, they're not really sure. But Irma showed me some interesting photos, and these are aura photos.
Yes.
Okay. And this one
the one in your hand was taken, they were both taken the last day of the Total Health show.
Yeah.
And it was the third day. I was exhausted, so that's why my aura is looking a little muddy.
Yep.
And the guys that took the pictures said, oh, no, it's not going to work. You walk it all the time. You use it all the time. I said, well, let me try. So I did. And that's the first photo before I used the white board, which is the double left and right board. And
this board is the one she was using, folks.
And I used that, and I traced the pattern with both my left and right hand at the same time to the center and back out again 3 times, and each time pausing in the center and taking a few deep breaths. And then I had my picture taken again, and you can see how the colors that were sort of lined up on one side in the previous photo are now lined up and split to both sides.
Yeah, because it looks like in the first photo there's a lot of green and like a big yellow stripe on would be well, on my right, as I'm looking at the photo, which would probably be your right as well when it was taken. And then you look to this one, and it looks like it's flowing more.
Yes, it actually split it.
So that's a neat thing. So that shows what it does to the energy. Okay. So how did you feel after you do the labyrinths, and how should a client expect to feel, or you know, what do clients tell you?
They tell me some people will actually feel the knitting of the brain together. Some people will say, it feels like I have a headache. Some people will say, what was that? I feel different. Some people won't feel anything. And I'll say to them, well, do you feel a little bit more relaxed? Yeah. So
it depends on the individual.
Exactly.
But different people have told you different things. Now, with this, like you were at a heavy-duty show, because you were at what's the health show?
Total Health show.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
That's a big one.
It's a big one. And when you are running a booth there, you are running. So for you to be able to go from this to that in a very short period, and this would have taken you how long to do the labyrinth? About 3 times?
Less than 5 minutes.
And you were just sort of doing it just to see what would happen?
Just out of curiosity, and I want to do it again sometime when I'm obviously in a little bit better shape, because more colors should show up in that case.
Funny, the colors that are here, just for those that know about aura, and it makes sense, a lot of green because you're teaching, and a lot of the emotional because you're exhausted, you're tired, and you want to get home, and all of those other things are the personal care coming out loud and clear here. And yet, when you go to the second photo, there's also a bit of, I believe, red or orange in there, which is revitalization.
Exactly.
So it's interesting how it brings out the other colors as well.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Now, I've been fiddling with this just briefly because I have a single labyrinth, the one that you said was 11.
Right.
What did you call it? 11 channels?
11 circuits.
11 circuits. And I just sort of going through and seeing, I think it takes you all over the place, and you really have to focus. And you can't see what I'm doing, but I'll lift the board a bit so you can see what I'm working on. And that is the board that I've been sort of fiddling with on the break. And I'm finding it really difficult to do because I'm very, like I said, I have real hand-eye coordination problems. And where I think I want to go, where I think it's going to go next, I'm following, and it takes me a totally different way, and it forces me to not be on my track.
Exactly.
Which is interesting because I figured, okay, if I start here, it will go there, and I have an idea where it's supposed to go. And then it takes me a total different way.
Yes, and that's the beauty of the labyrinth.
And you brought them. I run a psychic development class on Tuesday nights, and you brought them the first night, and everybody was playing with them, and I was doing the looks like therapeutic, looks like stuff that's going to challenge me. I'm not ready to look like a fool. So I was a little apprehensive, but even just, and I haven't done the whole thing because we haven't, I mean, the break is short, but even in doing that, it forces me to really, really concentrate. And if I follow it, it'd be interesting. And I'm just sort of going through, and I'm realizing it's going to take me all over that board and really make me map it out. I can feel my brain trying to work it out.
Yeah. Well, because, and again, I use this word metaphor. It's a metaphor for your life. So if the center of that is the perceived goal, you can see in that pattern how you quickly get towards the center as you move through it, only to be thrown back to the outside of it again.
Well, that's what shocked me, because I started the second second round of the circuits, and I went, okay, back out here. So it is an interesting feeling. I got to say that from my own perspective. So do people often say that they find it disorienting when they first?
Some do, especially if they've never used it before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I find it disorienting only because I'm very linear. Although I'm very creative and I'm very intuitive, I'm very mapped out, and I think that's years of having to plan everything and make sure that everything is where it needs to be, because my life is fairly organized. So I find this whole concept of thinking I knowing where I'm going and finding I'm going somewhere else to be a bit of a throw-off.
Yes.
And yet, it's like, okay, be in that moment, and where's it going to take me now? So the question becomes, where do I go with it now? And I imagine as you go through this process, if you let yourself go and relax, which I'm not doing because I'm talking and hosting, but if you're doing this, you can let yourself go and relax, your mind will go in different places.
And that's exactly why the left and right boards work for kids or adults with ADD, because it helps to get what we call the yap yap voice out of the way, because you're forced to be in that moment and you're forced to do the pattern, and it sort of takes you out of your mind, which is meditative and calming.
Really, yeah. So they are known to work with folks with ADD.
Yes.
Oh, that certainly is.
And I can't say that, I've got proof of that. There's a person in the States that is currently doing a study on that. He's a therapist, and he's doing a study with the double boards, with his therapy and with ADD.
And seeing what the results
and seeing what the result is. But on a recent show of the doctors, they said, and maybe this doesn't equate to ADD, but equates to elderly. They said if you brush your teeth with your non-dominant hand on a regular basis instead of your dominant hand, you're going to start building new neural pathways to your brain. So it makes sense that if you use a labyrinth board that is using both hands at the same time, you're doing the same thing. So you're balancing your brain, you're integrating your brain, you're challenging your brain with something that's new and different. So that's going to help you to be calmer, more focused, maybe have greater mental clarity. So it works for anybody. If you're stressed, if you're trying to solve a problem, it's just like meditation. I mean, those of us that can meditate, it's easy, but you have to learn how to do it. In 5 minutes or less of using this, you're sort of getting into that meditative state, and the more you use it and the more often, the deeper you go.
That's interesting. I also noticed you have different types of boards. You've got the single one in front of me that's the 11th circuit board. You've got these two, which are double, the both hands, and they're 7 circuits. And then you've got other ones over here. So tell us something about each of those.
Well, this larger board is what we call a client to therapist board. This is 10 by 22, and it's worked with, say you and I had this on the desk between us, a labyrinth pointing to you and a labyrinth pointing to me. What this does in the case of hypnotherapy, it opens the client up to suggestology. So they're open to suggestion. They're a little more ready to receive it. In the case of a therapist, a counselor, a coach, it opens them up to conversation. So if somebody's particularly closed and it's hard to get them to open up, this allows them to feel a little safer and a little more free to converse with a therapist.
Oh, okay.
And
That makes sense to me from a psychotherapeutic point of view. I know that
yes,
my experience being that it takes at least 5 sessions when you start with somebody brand spanking new from scratch for them to get out of the niceties and
yes,
the, gee, I'm okay, I'm here, and I know I
yeah,
need them, but I'm putting on their best front
yes,
and getting into the work that they know that they're there for, and so that was it's always been a surprise to me, because as a psychic, my whole thing is to get in there, get deep, and you know,
get it done.
almost titillate and shock because they go, oh my God, I can't believe she saw that or whatever.
Yes.
But when you're doing the other side of it, and the person is coming, they may have a lot of reserves. That makes sense to me. That really makes sense to me. And so you would use that as a tool just to sort
Yes.
of get them comfortable with the talk therapy then.
And it was a hypnotherapist that used this with her husband when they had a house crisis, and found out that it actually works as an affirmation tool with a partner. You anchor the energy of a positive affirmation if you use it with a partner. You wait for each other in the center, and then you walk out, wait for each other at the exit. And it just anchors the energy of the positive thought intention that you were holding while you were using it.
Now that's interesting.
Yeah, she told me about that. I thought, oh, that's cool, a new use for the board.
Well, hey, there's all kinds of different tools that people are
Yes.
trying to use. And it is creating your own ritual as well.
Yes.
And I think that that's something that we are lacking in society. I mean, it used to be ritual in church or ritual in your family, in your traditions, and everything is so open and broad, which is good for some people, but there are some people who need something to do in order to relax.
Yes.
You know, the chronic knitter. You know,
Yes,
they
yes.
need something to do with
Yeah.
their hands, or they need something to get them into. You know, we all have a sense of ritual, but some are more tied to it than others. So you're doing this, and that's neat about the two people trying to create a positive affirmation around whatever the issue was
Yes.
in their lives.
And
so, oh, you were going to say something.
Well, I just wanted to add to what you were saying. We live in such a busy, multitasking, high-speed world now that we rarely get the time to go within and decompress ourselves and find space where we can just be ourselves and listen to our own inner voices. And that's what a labyrinth allows you to do.
Well, that I got to say that's true, because even, you know, even those of us who are in the industry, we get busy, we get, you know, on our, you know, all the things that we're doing, and sometimes you just need to take a break and reset the button. And so this is almost like a reset.
Exactly.
Okay. You've got some other interesting ones there. I just want to touch on what they are.
Well, this is just a 7-circuit single. Therapists that have their clinics and whatnot, they like this, you know, for display.
Yeah.
I have people who have bought the double boards and just put them on their desk for their clients to use when they walk in. Say you've got a client coming and the traffic's been horrendous, get them to use it before you even talk to them, whether you're doing psychic work, whether you're a marketing expert, whatever.
Yeah, whatever you're...
They use it and they have great results with it because it calms the client down the moment they walk in the door. They've got a calming tool. Yeah. The other two here are two of another set that I have. I have the peace symbol, the Om symbol, which I have tracing instructions for as well. And I also have Reiki symbols. I haven't got them up on the website yet, but I have them.
But these are all different. Do people have different reactions to the different symbols and the different boards?
Yes, yes they do, oddly enough.
What are some of the things they tell you?
Well, when I was at the Total Health show, a gentleman came by from Sweden or Finland or something and told me that this design here, the peace symbol, was wrong, that the original symbol was with it like this. And I thought, okay, that's interesting, and it probably was originally like that. It had something, you know, about thank you or to the gods or something. That's where the symbol came from. But because it's so synonymous this way now, the energy is really anchored in this symbol. Yeah. So it's interesting.
You could use the other symbol, but you'd have to reacquaint people with it.
Exactly. But people are acquainted with it this way. So.
And even though even the Om symbol there, it doesn't look like much. I mean, it's not as complicated as these other boards, but if you follow it through, it can be, that would be interesting.
Well, it's just like tracing a Reiki symbol. Those that have been initiated into Reiki, know that there are symbols that they're taught and they have to memorize and whatnot. And you can do the same with symbols that are already out there, such as the peace and Om symbol. You just have to know how to trace them.
There is a specific way
Yes.
to trace it. I hate to say correctly,
Well,
but
to
it
have
is
the
correct.
energy that you want imbued.
Sort of like when you're working with chakras, you open
Yes.
them a certain way and you close, or you can I don't like not completely close them, containerize them
Yes.
another way,
Protect them.
and so it is a process of working with the flow of energy. Okay, what would you tell people about the labyrinth? What's it done for you in your own life?
I guess for me in my life, it's given me an anchor, I guess you could say, because I'm so passionate about it, about traveling to places where they have them, about showing people what they are, where they are, teaching people about them. It's just the best word I can come up with is given me an anchor that sort of keeps me focused because I can be all over the place. So, you know, here I have this tool that helps me because I tend to be scattered and unfocused, probably I'm ADD. So if I get that way, I just use it and I'm right back in, you know, ready to go back to work again.
You've said you've traveled to different places to go and do you specifically travel to go to do a labyrinth, or are you in your travels already?
In my travels, I've gone once to a labyrinth, which is the France trip. But when I was in Peru, in Machu Picchu area, we were going up the steps of a church. And what they do in many places of, you know, where there's been old buildings that have fallen down, they take those bricks or pieces and they reuse them. So in the steps of this church were these little labyrinth symbols that were probably from an old Mayan or Inca temple of some sort, that they had been reused as the steps of the church.
Oh, that's kind of neat. I imagine. What is the history of the labyrinth? How long has it been around? What do you know?
Some say 3,000, some say 4,000 years old. It dates back to ancient coins with the design on them. There's a pottery jug with a labyrinth on it with the words Troy engraved on it. So they go back, I mean, many, many years. To me, it's a holistic, organic design based in nature. Because if you look at nature, how a flower grows, how water eddies and pools in a spiral, how, let's see, what is it, a sunflower? You know, it all goes back to sacred geometry and the golden mean.
Yeah, okay.
You know, how everything's based on that and everything is perfect in perfect balance. And the spiral is, you know, the personification of that, and it's been translated into a labyrinth.
That makes sense. That makes total sense. I'm fascinated just by the feel of it. And is it also the feel of the boards
It's
themselves?
the feel of the material, because it's Corian and because it's highly polished after they carved the design in it, it's very tactile friendly. So it feels very smooth. People love to feel it, touch it. But it doesn't feel like plastic and it doesn't feel like metal. It's very different.
It feels like, to me, I thought it was stone.
Yeah, it doesn't.
It is. Is Corian, is that a form of plastic? Or?
It's got all kinds of different materials in it, but it's not chemical. There's there's nothing chemical coming off of it. So it's very safe.
It feels cool to the touch.
Yes.
And it has just a very, very smooth sensation to it. And even if you're brushing through, and if you brush over them, there's just a very, very gentle feel to it.
Yes.
That's interesting. Well, we'll take another short break. You're listening to Psychic Street Smarts. I'm Catherine MacDonald at www.spiritualcat.com, on thatchannel.com every Monday night, 7 to 8. We're talking to Irma Haggith, and her website is www.amazeyourmindlabyrinths.com, and we'll be right back.
An